Model Man here, and right before I left to tend to my mother for a few weeks, Round 2 sent me a box of car kits. Got some sci-fi, or should I say one sci-fi, and 6 others. Then when I got back, I found waiting for me a whole bunch of other kits. Robbie and Altera, Wolverine, Alien, the 350 NX01, the 11000 NX01 refit, the Botany Bay 11000 Enterprise, and even the lunchbox. And being at a model kit show this weekend, I found this guy for $10, and since Round 2 owns the MPC line, and they cannot make Star Wars again, I thought I'd throw this in as a bit of a lark with the other 3 figure kits. So, I think breaking this down is fairly obvious. We'll take a look at the cars, the figures, and the Trek. And which one will be first? How about this? Alright, and so, of the 7 car kits I have in front of me, a full 4 of them come from Polar Lights themselves. Essentially, all new tools. As opposed to these 2 MPC repops and the AMT Elvis Presley over here. We'll definitely be opening the box on the sci-fi kit here, and we'll take a look at each of these. I'm pretty sure I looked at this one previously, several months ago last year. However, I could be wrong on that. Did get to see the 1/16th version of this. It would have been nice if I hadn't auctioned that off already, and we could have done a side-by-side on these. And as is typical for a lot of car kits, you get a parts diagram and some basic information on the bottom of the box. It looks like for all you car guys, there's really a never-ending series of really great opportunities coming out for you. Free Hot Rod Magazine subscription offer. I did review the Young American there. And here's an odd choice, the old Gremlins. I'm kind of surprised to see this in plastic. It was such a crappy car to begin with. And of course, the other name item here is the Elvis Presley Live a Little, Love a Little Myers Manx. Molded in yellow. And you even get several options for things, so you can build a variety of kits. And finally, Back to the Future. It looks like we can expect some good detail in the back there. Let's pop it open. A surprisingly nice amount of pieces overall. I thought it was going to mostly be related to the sci-fi portions of the ship that would get all the really cool shapes and stuff. However, there are a bunch of normal car parts in here as well. Detail overall is fairly crisp. I'm sure there's some scratch building that could be done to this to make it a little more authentic or less injected plastic looking. But overall, the parts are definitely nice. There's a lot of really good shapes. Lines are distinct. Details are plentiful. Body of the car is really nice. It's done in this fall metal finish. It looks really nice as is, but I know that gluing metal plastics can be kind of tough, so I don't know if that will cause a problem. I pulled one of the tires out because I thought it had some really good detail around the edges and wanted to show that off if it won't roll away. And one standard canopy, clear plastic, that will go in wherever. The directions themselves, it looks like there's about a dozen color calls overall, but the direction sheet itself couldn't be too much simpler, really. 2 basic pages with a little bit of finish work on this side, and that's all there is, really. So that's a good amount of stuff into a nice little small package, I think. Back to the Future fan will definitely be happy with this one, and I'm sure a lot of car builders will as well. Never mind the general science fiction fan, too. So, next up, let's take a look at... The directions are straightforward and easy enough. The head is definitely going to be the most complicated part, but it's a lot of similar pieces that once you get one going, all the rest should fall into place. A little bit extra for Altera. Again, front to back assembly, it's all going to be relatively, or definitely easy is what I should say. Half a dozen different colors or so. The box also comes with this really nice heavy cardstock backdrop to simulate the poster. In the groove here, there is a bit of a curve, and just trying to get this in single-handedly, it doesn't quite work. And even when you get it close, it wants to pop out because the cardboard will need to be curved to fit in there. I know their intent was to resalvage as many pieces as they could from the regular Robbie kit. They did do new legs for Robbie himself, and the lines on that are looking really nice. One thing that really scares me about this kit is fixing the seams along those spheres, because that's definitely got to be really tough. The seams on Altera's leg may not be too bad. I decided to leave the clear plastic wrapped in the plastic just for maximum protection, and you can pretty much get a good look at all the parts as they are through the plastic. Over here we got Altera's face, her hair, a couple arms, getting into Robbie's torso over here. The head has some really nice details on it. Chrome parts are basic and pretty much all that you would expect there. Again, getting the seams on those hands and the arms should be kind of tough, or at least time intensive, I would imagine. These details look pretty good here. I think this is going to build into a really nice kit overall. It's a great concept, and it's definitely going to be a relatively unique piece once you finish. So next up, let's take a look at Alien really quick. And another kit with relatively simple assembly instructions, front and back pieces assembled front to back. Some nice details on the body overall. Can't quite speak to the accuracy of it. Probably the one big disappointment to this is the pose, which I realize goes back to NPC days, but it's just really uninspired, and it looks more like a sloucher than anything else. Definitely not something to really be afraid of. I mean, yeah, it looks creepy, but a more dynamic pose would be good. And with round 2 now owning the new license, hopefully under Polar Lights they'll be able to come up with some more interesting poses for the alien itself. Got the Kane figure to look forward to real soon, and they were talking about one other one, but I think it was on their blogs, but right at the moment it eludes me. Real simple kit, definitely. If you're an Alien fan, you probably have this on your shelf already. If not, it's probably worth it for the low price that it might be. I couldn't quite say to the cost itself. And I left this piece in here. This is a clear dome for the head, which is a nice effect, so any advanced painter is going to be able to do some really interesting effects with that. So, have a look at Wolverine. And one thing I did not catch before was this cool little poster on the back. That background picture would be a much better pose for the alien rather than just a Frankenstein one here they got. Anyway, back on to the Wolverine. And so, having missed the back of the alien box, I decided to take a look at this, and here we go. This one is another sheet that's glued onto the back, while this one here is fully printed onto the back. Nice. Be sure you're wearing your sunglasses when you open this box. This is a whole lot of orange going on. You get two faces, one masked, traditional, and the other one unmasked, ferocious. Nice detail in the hair, and basic comic book definition, abs and body parts all over the place. Probably one of the coolest things about this here is the sentinel head of the base, which is totally Wolverine. Nice job on that. Then a few other parts up here. And naturally, the claws come all chromed already. Comic book fans, you are going to be happy. This is going to go great with the Captain America, the Spider-Man, and now the Wolverine all in this scale. And same basic box display. So finally, let's take a look at some classic plastic real quick. Little Darth Peep lost his sheep, didn't know where to find him. I guess actually the helmet goes on more like this. And his face goes more like that. That's a little better, huh? So for $10, I couldn't resist getting this. Of course, having gotten it, I will be lighting it up, doing it as close as possible. However, I do think I may very well just keep the glow-in-the-dark aspects and work with those. We'll see how that goes. Using a red CCFL tube, a 6-inch, would probably work great for this lightsaber. We'll see how that works out though. The seam on the cape is going to be really bad to do. I already did a little bit of a test fitting, and essentially you have just a major seam, but that's easy to fix with some putty. The pose itself, like the NPC alien, NPC Vader is rather uninspired. Not very menacing, and they both rely on the same gimmick of having rotating arms, or in this case, a single arm for the lightsaber. Assembly is pretty straightforward, nothing to worry about, and it should go pretty quick overall, except for the lighting part of it. So it's fun to see these old kits, and his butt kind of looks like it's covered in fur or something. The accuracy, I probably wouldn't really give it to him. The face is not too bad overall once it's sitting in the helmet properly. Obviously it's not quite right, but it's a pretty good approximation, I think. So, that's it for this. And from Star Wars, let's shoot over to some Star Trek. And next up, the Star Trek lunchbox. Contained inside is the 1701/1000 scale. However, they do have pictures of their other AMT kits here all around, with some basic round 2 information on the bottom there. And it's definitely well packed in here. This should be the standard 1701 kit, which I believe I've reviewed before, so we won't take too long a look at it, but let me grab all this stuff out of here and we'll go from there. As we have the 1701 Botany Bay to look at, I'm not going to open the plastic on this because it's the same exact model. You get 4 different versions of nacelles, or rather 2 pairs of 2 versions. Saucer itself in another bag. The lunchbox does come with this really nice metallic sticker. That's a really beautiful effect that this thing has right there. They went with an older base, probably because they couldn't fit one of the domes in here. The instructions should also be the same for the Botany Bay one. Of course, that'll have the Botany Bay build itself too. Really, there's not too much overall that's difficult about it. One mistake I made on the one that I built was that I tried to build it like the AMT 650, and this is not the AMT 650. Different decal and paint schemes for depending on which of the three versions you want to make, and three basic paths for what to follow. Top and then the bottom branches into two, which again gets together at the end. Tin box itself, it's relatively stable. It makes a lot of shaky noise, which is somewhat annoying. The decal sheets will be the same in the Botany Bay version, so we'll take a look at those there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you're into getting their tin edition stuff, this is definitely one you'll be wanting. This definitely probably is not strong enough to handle daily lunchbox routine though, so not quite functional, but definitely a nice little look. So let's take a look at the 1000 Botany Bay Enterprise. This is it for the added directions for it. The fishtail simply notches into the body and everything else just slots together. The rest of the instructions look pretty standard overall, and decals and painting guide on the back. And there's how the stand plugs into the overall stand. It's always nice to be able to pull out one of the resin kits that I've got, and in this case this is the Captain Cardboard Botany Bay. I figured out the scale once, but the number is completely eluding me. It's definitely about 3 or 4 times too big for this here. But overall, compared, this is pretty spot on. There's no grill work in the front, but you wouldn't necessarily expect that. The tower is pretty darn accurate. You do have that notch to get rid of off the top, but that should be a simple slice. And the details on the body are pretty much there. So a nice little addition. The solar fins themselves are definitely opaque plastic. I don't know if there's really any way. That's a very small piece for a very delicate work if you were going to make that see-through. But yeah, all the details are pretty good on it. Definitely nice. Standard parts everywhere else. Unlike the lunchbox, you do get the standard round 2 round base. I don't know if they simply couldn't fit that in a lunchbox or what. Could be that it was forgotten, or even forgotten out of this particular sample. The plastic for that is in white, while this is in gray. Otherwise, you get a slew of nacelles and enough leftover parts to suit your heart's desire, with a good amount of clear parts as well. Decals, the one thing that I do wish they do is find some room to put the eyebrows in for the ship, because it'd be so much easier if that was simply a decal there rather than having to paint it. So with that, let's take a look at this guy here. So the NX-01, much less the refit, is not a design I'm totally familiar with. I wound up hating the Enterprise series from the start, and wound up being everything about it. But to separate the design of this ship out of the aspect of the Enterprise TV series, it's definitely a classic starship design, reminiscent of, is it the Lochnar, or does that have 2 pylons pointing up towards one engine rather than 2 pylons going off to the side? Anyhow, it's not a design not unseen before in Star Trek lore overall, at least the suggestions of it. It's just highly modified and funked up version of it. So to me, this ship was always like a 1701E era design rather than a pre-TOS design. But it's a little too funky, it's a little too angular, perhaps, in a lot of ways, especially down in here. So all these lines down here suggest advancement over the TOS design rather than a primitive more version of it. All the other parts look to be fairly standard. This here is mostly the fret for the refit version of the ship if you want to build it that way. standard amount of clear parts. Nice little detail parts to go all over the place. And matching the cells. But probably the biggest thing about this is just the really fine detail overall on the main hulls. Everything else is just basically icing on the cake. Lines are finely engraved everywhere. Detail is as sharp as it can be for the scale. And it's got some nice angles overall. And one of the things I was going to do for the 350 version of the ship was to pull out one of the 350 saucers, which would actually be a bit of a pain. And then I realized, hey, I've got this 1000 right here, and it's pretty much exactly the same size, which was another surprise to me. It's actually a little bigger on that one, perhaps just as big. And yes, just as big on that one. So that was another surprise to me. As a pre-TOS design, I think it should have been smaller than that. Anyhow, yeah, this isn't too bad. I really like all the designs and shapes on here. There's definitely enough to keep you busy, but it's going to go fast enough. You could probably knock this off in a weekend at most with full decals. Oh, yes, and speaking of the decals, kind of sparse that you have to Aztec this entire thing. Maybe they'll release a separate Aztec sheet for it, or somebody will out there in the aftermarket world. But this is pretty minimal overall, so you can do a decent job. But getting it to look like this from this without an astounding paint job or simple decals, that could be kind of tough. I definitely want to get the unboxing of this one and my first sight, simply because I did for the refit and the TOS. That's a big piece of plastic, jeez. I guess the other saucers are only as big as this simply because they fill in the rest of their own circles, rather this is cut out of a circle. Big plastic, lots of clear. We got some more clear. Got some more clear. Big monster base. Pylons, impulse, nacelles, and other fiddly parts. Probably very similar to what we saw with the 1000 version. So let me get this sorted out, and we'll take a look at it in a second. And this kit is so big we're gonna have to look at it in sections. Too many pieces, too little space. The direction sheets overall are pretty extensive. Laying in all the glasswork here is definitely gonna be a lot of fun for someone. Then over here on the other side, it's just a lot more instructions, a lot of details, and then the decal and painting placement guide, or at least the decal application guide. Perhaps the painting comes in different places. There's your color charts. A much more expanded decal sheet, simply because of all these little black dots I imagine, plus other details that were simply too small for a 1/1000 scale to be seen. No Aztecs, but I imagine there must be some kind of painting solution out there, because otherwise it's just going to be kind of dull compared to the variety that you get in something like that. Again, the details overall are nice and crisp. To me, from basically bridge all the way down to lower sensor, this says DS9 all over it, which is good in its own way. I suppose if I were to build one of these, I'd number it accordingly, so it was an NCC 10,000 whatever. But yeah, the design is definitely an interesting one. At least as good as the Enterprise E. The cells are a pretty good size. They almost look like a really good design for a lightsaber. Lots of little details, everything engraved all over. So let me pack this up and we'll open up a couple other bags. And table 2 of the parts. Pylons, looks like an impulse area, and lots of tiny little pieces. A lot more than I would have thought. Much more tank-like in their design, or military armor additions, little greeblies. Of course, here we have some standard windows. But stuff like that right there is, I guess, more Star Wars. But nice to see all the little touches that go all over the place. Again, the quality of the injection and the plastic molding. Definitely solid. As sharp as it can be. That's pretty much true all over the entire body. Seemed like more, but there were only 3 bags of clear sprue. Starting with some of the bigger window pieces here. That's a nice piece right there. Impulse crystal, perhaps? Impulse vents, perhaps? Over here we get into the nacelles. Very fine line work on these. Oh, and I see you even get a piece where you can set all your LEDs. Nice. And then here, 2, 4, 6 sprue, all of tiny little window pieces. Heaven help you if any of these start falling off these trees en masse. Wow. So a hefty amount of pieces overall. And before I pack all these pieces away, I should note that on the tray here there's a lot of beauty work that shows off a lot of the finer details of, it looks like, the CG model at the very least. And there it totally looks like the Romulan bird of prey, huh? Nice look there. That's a lot of Aztec work, holy cow. Sweet. And we'll take a look at the back of the box in a second. Over 200 parts. I think the refit box boasts of over 150. Over 2 feet in length. There you have it. A look at 14 kits from round 2, from cars to aliens, robots, superheroes, spaceships, and everything in between. Thanks for watching. See ya.